What's up, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Processing Blue, where, Mike, what do we do?
We process blue for you.
That's right. He's Mike K. I'm Alex Zetlow. We're Carolina Panthers beat writers for the Charlotte Observer, and we got quite the packed show for you today. We're going to recap the confusingly delightful day for Panthers fans in Lambeau this past weekend. We'll each offer our biggest surprise over this 4-1 stretch. We'll look ahead to the 1-8 New Orleans Saints, but first, Mike, let's address what's going on today, the NFL trade deadline. It is come and gone in Carolina. We're recording this at 4:30 p.m., and the deadline was at 4 p.m., and nothing has happened. Is this about what you expected to come from today?
Yeah, based on my reporting from the Axis Panthers newsletter on our website, pretty much the entire time, I was trying to downplay the trade deadline because I didn't see them making any big deals. They definitely did not want to be sellers. Even before the win over the Packers, it was extremely encouraging, which we'll get into later. I know social media was kind of running wild with the trade Chuba talk, but that just wasn't going to happen. They view him as a face of the franchise. Even after using Rico Dowdle as the number one running back, he's a guy that they consider a leader in the locker room and somebody who's important there. As far as making trades for players, Dan Morgan really covets draft picks, really covets them. He said it in, January at the Shrine Bowl. He said it in February at the Combine. He said it in March at the owners' meetings. He said it in April after the draft. He then said it after trading Adam Thielen in August.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much more you can emphasize how important draft picks are to a guy who has spent the bulk of his career scouting players. And so for him to just kind of hold tight, I think that's true to form. I think that's a philosophical thing for the Panthers. Granted, I do expect them to be aggressive in years to come, but right now they are 5-4 with the team that they have, even as the offensive line has dealt with attrition, even as the defensive line has been banged up, even as the front seven is kind of trying to find its way, and the wide receiver and running back positions have been in flux. And I think they feel very good about the culture that they are setting. So it's not just about talent, it's about culture. And if you talk to anybody at Lambeau Field, culture was kind of the theme of what they were talking about when they reflected on the win almost immediately after. There were a couple of trades that I thought could have made sense for them from a value standpoint, not necessarily players, and so I wanted to bring those up. If they were going to make a trade, I felt like it would have been for a late round pick swap, maybe a 6th round pick in 2026 for a 7th round pick in 2026, and a player, specifically an edge. Really, if you look at what the Bears did with the Browns, the Bears acquired outside linebacker Joe Tryon Soyinka and a 2026 7th round pick from the Browns for a 2026 6th round pick. That was about like kind of the area that I thought they might go. Arden Key from the Titans kind of made sense. Matthew Judon from the Dolphins kind of made sense. Just an experienced rotational pass rusher who could come in and play behind DJ Wanham, Nick Scorton, Travis Gibson, and Princely Uman-Milan, especially with Uman-Milan dealing with an injury. Another trade that I thought was kind of interesting, though I don't believe the Panthers would have really made sense. Logan Wilson, he's kind of had a dramatically bad year, got benched on one of the worst defenses in the league. He got traded to Dallas for a 2026 7th round pick. That was like around the value that I thought they could maybe trade off for an inside linebacker, so that kind of made sense. The real trade that I thought they kind of maybe missed out on was Keon White in a 2026 7th round pick being sent from the Patriots to the 49ers, with the Patriots receiving a 2026 6th round pick. I just really liked Keon White as a prospect. I don't think he's really lived up to his hype, but that was kind of really good value in my opinion. Other than that, I mean, I don't know what you can complain about. Sometimes the trade deadline is about the trade you don't make, right? And, we saw the rumors about A.J. Brown, even though that seemed impossible because of the cap hit, he wasn't traded. We saw Bradley Chubb be brought up a lot. He wasn't traded by the Dolphins. We didn't see Sauce Gardner and Quentin Williams really get brought up in trade discussions, and they both got traded for multiple top picks. Will those pay off? We're not sure, right? Like the Jets have to take advantage of these draft picks or those trades of two blue chip players will come back to bite them even further than what they've got right now. But they were 1-7 and they could lose with or without those guys. I think, Nick Samak is still on this team. I mean, anything can help. Hey, Mr. 4-0, the backup center is still here. And he, as long as you have him active on game day, good things are going to happen. That's pretty much why they beat the Packers, right?
I know that I know that you're laughing about that, and we say that stuff in good fun, but what you just said was really insightful. You asked a question to Dave Canales yesterday about the trade deadline that I wanted to bring up. It was about whether, well, firstly, you asked his general thoughts on the trade deadline, and he essentially said the fact that we're 5-4 doesn't change how I view this deadline. Whether all that matters is if a player can deliver value to us and if they fulfill a need. And but then you went on to talk about this defensive thing that's going on and how sometimes it is easier to go out and get a veteran defensive playmaker in the middle of the year if you need him to plug and play immediately because, systematically it's harder to plug and play a guy on offense. All the players that you mentioned just now in this hypothetical sort of thing were all defensive guys. Did the fact that, hey, you might be able to get plugged into EJ Evero's system faster, did that kind of go into your calculus of, hey, the Panthers could use a defensive guy? Or was it just, hey, the Panthers, need some help on defense more so than offense right now?
You saw Trevor Penning get traded from the Saints to the Chargers, but really offensive linemen don't really get moved at the trade deadline because teams are worried about how they'll fit. There's especially, because a lot of the success comes with, who's next to you, right, on the offensive line. So you're really kind of not exposed. You're bringing this guy in fresh off another potential blocking scheme. It's just not something that happens. And so when you look at the Panthers' needs, I think inside linebacker has gotten much better since Roseboom and Wallace have switched up responsibilities. We'll probably talk about that a little bit when we recap the Packers game. But really, edge was the position. They brought in Travis Gibson, who seemed like a play for a guy who was kind of at that level of the Arden Keys and whatever without having to make a trade. That's kind of what that kind of looked like to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this team is a player away. I don't think they're 2 players away. I don't think they're 3 players away from being legitimate Super Bowl contenders. And so when you have to weigh that, you have to say to yourself, is trading a 3rd-round pick or a 4th-round pick for a rental really worth the move, especially with the way guys get injured and, where you are in the pecking order of the playoff race? Because you're technically not in the top 7 right now. And so they're so close to 500. The second half of their schedule is pretty tough. They have a late bye week. Like, there's just a lot of factors there. And I think they feel really encouraged by this draft class and the return on it so far. And so if you're the scouts and you're Dan Morgan, you feel pretty good about building this through the draft and building this young core. They've got a youth movement right now. If you look at the wide receiver room, everybody's got 2 or 3 years of experience or less. I mean, well, with David Moore out, obviously, and Hunter Renfrow being inactive.
Yep.
There's not a lot of like aging positions on this team. It's a team that is largely based on youth and development, and they're kind of living up to the hype. I mean, like Ashawn Robinson is really the one guy who you could say maybe he's expendable and has some trade value, but I don't think that's the case. Just talking around the league, I don't think a lot of teams are interested in the Panthers players. And conversely, well, I think Dan Morgan does a lot of really good research. He comes from the John Schneider and Brandon Bean trees. Those guys make a lot of calls. That doesn't mean they were actively interested in anyone. I think if they were and they wanted to be aggressive, they would have been. But I think for the most part, my understanding from people outside the organization is that they were going to stand still. And then my other conversations were like, why push a button that doesn't need to be pushed?
Mm-hmm.
Because either you're going to make a big splash like the Colts did with Sauce, or the Cowboys did with Quinn, or you're going to make a really minor trade like obviously the Bears did with JTS, or the 49ers did with Keon White. That's just there's no really in between. If you could tell me, hey, they could certainly upgrade their pass rushing group and only give up, a 6th-round pick, awesome. But like you look at Jalen Phillips going to the Eagles for a 3rd-round pick, and that
Right.
kind of tells you where the pass rush market is. I think that Dan Morgan would have been very hesitant to give up a mid-round pick for a player. If he could have gotten a pick swap, awesome. But he has never traded a pick outright for a player. In his 6 trades, only 2 of them have been incoming, and both of them involved another player. So it would be outside of his zone of interest, really, and his outlook to do that.
Yeah. I think, just to put a final bow on this, I think this proved that this front office did 2 things really, really well. Firstly, they go out and get Travis Gibson to bolster this pass rush. The 49ers were not happy when he came to Carolina. At least the fans were very loud about the fact that he departed. And he was on the practice squad, so the Panthers have every right to go out and get him and sign him to the active to their active roster according to team rules. The second thing, this Adam Thielen trade at the beginning of the season has aged so wonderfully. Do those 2 things are those 2 fair things to say, Mike?
I think so, and something to kind of bear in mind over the next couple of weeks. Thielen, if he reaches 10 games, as I reported when the trade happened, if he reaches 10 games, the pick stays as a 7th-round pick. The conditional pick in 2026 stays as a 7th-round pick. If he's not on the roster for 14 games or isn't active for 10 games, the pick becomes a 6th-round pick. So Panthers fans should be hoping that Adam Thielen continues to run routes without catching a pass. But if you look at really what Thielen's done, he's got 5 catches for 47 yards. All those catches have come in losses. Meanwhile, Jimmy Horn Jr., who's played like half of the season, is outproducing him. Bryson Tremaine has more than double his catches and yardage. Xavier Legette is getting to prove himself. While that's been pretty inconsistent, at least he's getting those looks. Jalen Coker, I believe, has 4 catches for 45 yards. So he's a catch and 2 yards shy of Adam Thielen, who's played the entire season. Jones been back for 3 games. So I think it was good business. I think that plays into everything. And I also think, the Panthers have 7 picks in each of the next 2 drafts. So they're whole, but those picks are bettered because of the Thielen trade. I think that's the type of move you want to make as a smart and shrewd GM.
Yeah, heck yeah. Okay, well, that was really fun. That was really good stuff, Mike. Really appreciate that. Let's talk about this Packers game. Because the resounding question that I had, and I was watching it from in Charlotte, North Carolina, you were in Green Bay, but as I was watching the broadcast, the question that kept cropping up into my mind is how. Bryce Young was not great statistically. He threw an interception in the end zone. The Panthers defense let Jordan Love have a few big plays early. Rico Dowdle got banged up in the second quarter, played through it, and then on a second touchdown run had a really, at the time, pretty important unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that forced a deeper field goal, a missed PAT, and now the Packers were only within 7 with much of the second half still to go. Mike Jackson drops a wide open interception in the end zone with, it seemed like 105 yards to go. He could have notched a pick 6 basically. And yet somehow the Panthers win 16-13. So Mike, you were there. I'm going to pose the question to you. How did they do that?
Well, I think one, and I brought this up before, I brought this up on our lovely website, charlotteobserver.com, in our Axis Panthers newsletter on this podcast.
Yep.
When the Panthers can run the ball and stop the run, they are extremely hard to beat. That's what they want to accomplish. When they can't do either of those things, it's problematic. So it's kind of like you either show up and execute or you're going to get blown to smithereens. And that's what they did. I think the passing offense and the passing defense have almost become secondary to the success of this team. Because if you look at the way they played outside of the Cowboys game, Bryce Young's kind of been not necessarily a bystander, but he's been a cog. He hasn't been the machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that speaks to that. Excuse me. I think the Packers kind of outsmarted themselves. If you remember last year, the Eagles played, or the Panthers played the Eagles, and all week we said the Eagles should just run the ball with Saquon Barkley.
Just
They'll
give it
run
to
for like 300 yards.
Yeah.
So what does Nick Sirianni do? He goes very pass heavy and keeps them in the game the entire game by overthinking it or trying to make a point or thinking like you could do something somebody else didn't. I think the coverage unit has been mostly pretty good. I mean, Mike Jackson's had his blips, but he's a number 2 corner. Look, I think the Packers made a lot of mistakes. Some of the stuff they did in the red zone just didn't work. The play calling was poor. I thought they ran the ball at inopportune times. It felt like Jordan Love had no feel for the wind whatsoever, and the play calling didn't really adjust for it. I thought Canales deserved a lot of credit for, after the Bryce Young interception, they really changed up the way they handled the wind in play calling on offense. There was a lot. This team's resilient. We've said it a lot. Like every time the Packers were on the cusp of momentum, they had an answer. Whether it was like Trevon Merrick getting a 5-yard loss on a 3rd down stop, which then set up the brutal 4th down by Love and the dropped interception by Mike Jackson. Merrick also getting an interception deep, down the field. The forced fumble by Roseboom that ended up right in Nick Scott's hands. There was a lot of momentum shifts in this game, and they won the turnover battle, and they didn't kind of quiver at Lambeau. Like, that's a setting where teams quiver. And if you can't stop the run, you're toast because it's cold out there. It's miserable. It's a physical game. And they came to play. The Panthers out-physicaled the Packers in a lot of ways. And the Packers played the Panthers game, so to speak. They played into what they were doing well. And they never adjusted. And I think that really benefited the Panthers.
Yeah. I want to talk about Bryce Young.
Sure.
You brought him up. The prevailing stat, or the enduring stat that from this game about Bryce, he engineered his 9th game-winning drive since his rookie season in 2023 against the Packers. That's tied for the most in that 2.5 season span with guys like Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Geno Smith. When you ask Dave Canales what makes Bryce so good in the 4th quarter, particularly on these game-winning drives, Dave said he just knows he belongs, which is all great, and that's wonderful. When you put together his entire game, though, firstly, let's just put out the point that, yeah, he's had 9 game-winning drives. He's only won 11 total games. So in some ways, that could be as much an indictment as it is a virtue. But when you put together this whole Packers game, I don't really know what to make of it because, while I was watching, I was like, well, for some reason, I think that every time Bryce drops back to pass, something good is going to happen. And that's with him battling an ankle injury that seemed to make him less explosive. And, it seemed like that was hindering him a little bit. And so that's like his superpower, his elusiveness in the backfield. And that was limited. And then when you look at his final stat line, 11 of 20 for 102 yards and 1 interception in the red zone, 1 sack. His passer rating was 48.3, and that's really bad. That's the worst of his season. And keep in mind, the first 2 passer ratings that he had of last season, the 2 games that ultimately got him benched, his passer ratings were 32.8 and 57.2. So right on par with bench-level Bryce. And yet, there's just something about this game, and I'm really trying to separate the final result from it. But there's just something about this game where he played, I don't know, I was confident when he was back there at quarterback. I can't exactly pinpoint it. I mean, there were a couple throws just like looking back at it where he was throwing so ahead of a break that T-Mac made, or so ahead of a break that Xavier Legette made, that I was like, okay, that's a flash of like that's a flash of brilliance right there. And maybe the wind had a factor in it not showing up time and time again. But I don't know. Did you have a similar confidence in Bryce when he was asked to make plays back there? And I know, I get it. Rico was sensational, and that helps a ton. That helps a quarterback a ton when it comes to sustaining drives and eating up play clock and all these things. And of course, the Panthers only scored 16 points. But I don't know, man. There's just something about it that gave me confidence. I don't know. Do you agree with? Did you have a similar confidence?
I had a confidence that they would win the game when they got the ball with 2:30. Throughout the game, though, I did not have the confidence. I was waiting for the shoe to drop. I do think he was hindered by the ankle. I think that was apparent. I do think the wind played a factor. He had the one throw in the end zone that became an interception that might as well have just been a slot fade to Xavier McKinney. Like, it was so far away from the fade that Legette ran, and I saw people on Twitter being like, why doesn't he track the ball? It's a fade route. What do you mean? He's supposed to get outside shoulder. What are we talking about?
That whole thing just looked awkward, man. Like,
yeah, it was probably a bad throw, but I do think the wind did. I mean, there was no one in that area.
Right.
And look, that throw is an anticipation throw, and so maybe Legette ran the wrong route, but if he ran the route that he was supposed to, that was a horrible throw. And I don't think Bryce would ever admit that he ran a wrong route or whatever, but I do think like it was a bad throw one way or another.
Sure.
Bryce we've talked about this on the podcast numerous times. I'm not going to make excuses for him, but he is the type of player that it feels like the first half doesn't have enough oomph. You know, they talk about relief pitchers. Like when they sit down and they have to come back up, or when relief pitcher, like a closer, comes into a blowout, it's hard for them to get up. Like, you know what I mean? Like emotion and adrenaline. That's what Bryce feels like in a first half. It never feels like he can start fast and just pick up momentum. It's very rare. So they're always playing in dig out of the hole mode. And I think he's so comfortable in that. I joked with him after the game. I said, did you give them the Iron Bowl speech? Because I wrote a story about him where all of his teammates were like, would you rather be somewhere else? I mean, or is there any place you'd rather want to be?
Mike, I don't mean to quote you. I don't mean to be that guy and quote your own story to you, because it was such a great story. But the direct quote was, where else would you rather be?
Yeah, where else would you rather? Thank you. And so I just made the joke. Did you give him the Iron Bowl? And he was like, no, I don't give speeches, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, come on, Bryce. You knew what I was getting.
Bryce, please. Okay.
Bryce, come on, my guy. He was actually, honestly, that was one of his more verbose and enlightening press conferences that he has had in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Bryce is the cop. I mean, it is the machine of this offense. I think when the running game is going, we saw this last year with Chuba. When the running game is going and the defense is making stops, this team can win. If they can't do either, it doesn't matter how good Bryce is, because we saw that in the last time, you know, he played the Packers. They lost that game 33-30. Obviously, it was the Frank Reich era, but he had an outstanding performance, and it didn't really matter. It feels like every time Bryce puts up really good numbers, like, hey, that could be Pro Bowl numbers, they typically lose because they're relying solely on him to throw the ball. And so I don't know if that's problematic. I don't know if Canales is comfortable with that long term. I don't know if it's sustainable. But the way this team wins games is by running the football and stopping the run, because people are afraid to test J.C. Horn. Mike Jackson's been better than good.
Yeah.
And I think the safety groups played a little bit better than given credit. And so with the linebackers playing better and the defensive front playing a little bit better, I've kind of been right about Wharton. After all, he hasn't been terrific against the run. Even though he played pretty well against the Jaguars before getting injured, that's kind of regressed. But I think for the most part, Derek Brown, Ashawn Robinson's played really well. I think Nick Scorton's been terrific. They're figuring this out, and I just kind of think like the identity is running the ball and stopping the run.
Yeah, yeah. No, all that makes sense. I can't believe you're gonna dunk on my guy Turk Wharton after his 7-tackle career high game, but that's all right.
All right, listen. Here's the thing. People love talking about tackles. Typically, if you are making a lot of tackles, you're probably getting run at, especially as a defensive lineman. There's nuance to that. When Derek Brown had his career tackle thing, it's because he was throwing dudes out of the way and going and attacking downfield. Yeah. That's not really what Wharton's done. And I'm not like hating on him. I'm just saying he's just defense is not his thing.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was just joking with you. All right. Somehow the Panthers are 4-1 in their past 5 games. I was thinking that we could do just the biggest surprise of this 4-1 stretch. Mike, I want to hand it to you first, and then I'll give mine. There's so many things that is surprising about this 4-1 start, considering the first 2 games of the season. But if you could pinpoint one, what would it be for you?
I mean, if you told me that Rico Dowdle was going to be the full-time starter on this team and entering week 9, I would have laughed in your face.
Right.
I'm probably Chuba's biggest advocate in the local media, I would think. I'm a big fan of the way he runs. He has not looked the same. And then when you consider how banged up this offensive line's been, Robert Hunt, who was their best offensive lineman last year, Austin Corbett not playing well in the first 2 weeks, then getting injured. Taylor Moton's missed 2 games, Mr. Reliable, right? Damian Lewis has dealt with the occasional injury as well. You've got guys like Jake Curhan and Cade Mays and Chandler Zavala being asked to play heavy snaps. It's just like, I understand the depth. We talked about the depth, and they've been able to survive pretty much everything. I'm not saying it's been perfect, but as you mentioned, Bryce got sacked once for 0 yards on a scramble. They're still rushing for, 100. Rico Dowdle had 103 rushing yards in this game, and Jake Curhan was starting. It was the right guard for 3 quarters. So I think the sustainability of the run game has really been, amid all of this attrition and adversity, has really been the biggest surprise for me, because if you told me Chuba Hubbard was going to have a mediocre season and deal with injuries and the offensive line was going to be torn apart and they were still going to have the success that they do, I believe Rico Dowdle, as of right now, leads the NFC in rushing yards. Like, that's pretty crazy to me.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Yeah, he was. This was before Monday Night Football, but he was 4th in the league in rushing yards.
Wild.
And he didn't even get that many opportunities the first 4 weeks of the season, which is really crazy to think about. I too will probably go with another obvious answer. The offensive line stuff is really important to mix into the Rico stuff too, but I'm going to go with an obvious answer. How is this rush defense so good? Honestly, point blank period, they're good now. Obviously we've talked about it a lot coming into the year, or I think after the Jacksonville game, they had 8 straight weeks of 200 plus rushing yards from opponents. And then all of a sudden, after that Falcons win, or I guess it started against the Dolphins, they put together 3 straight weeks of well below 100 rushing yards allowed from their opponents. And in those same 3 weeks, they didn't allow a rush over 10 yards, a single rush over 10 yards. That's nuts. That is really good defense. That's the defensive line controlling the line of scrimmage. That is the linebackers cleaning up right behind them. I was just on Twitter today, because it's trade deadline day, and I was doom scrolling for a little bit at the beginning parts of the day, and I came across this segment where John Gruden was talking. And John Gruden was talking about the Panthers, and he was like, I don't know who this Christian Roseboom guy is, but man, is he great, blah, blah, blah. And I think obviously Carolina knows who Christian Roseboom is. because he's the starting inside linebacker and, he won a Super Bowl with the Rams and all these things. But to the outside world, he is not well known, which is kind of nuts to think about. Like before the season, before Josie Jewell got released by the team, he wasn't even going to start. So the fact that he is turning in the performances that he had a career high 15 tackles against the Packers, and that's also back-to-back weeks of 12 plus tackles. No Carolina Panthers linebacker has done that since 2016, and that linebacker was Luke Kuechly. So whenever you're involved in some Luke Kuechly history, that's great. I just did not see this run defense coming, or this run defense improvement coming, particularly along the, yes, we heard all about this defensive line, but you really need good linebacker play in order to do that. And I just don't think the team had it in them. I don't know how you feel about that. Do you have any follow-ups on that? Or, I just didn't see
I've been enamored with the run defense since Evero got here. I pretty much brought it up almost every Evero press conference for his first 2 years here. So, no, I think it's been great. I think Trevin Wallace played particularly well since inheriting the green dot from Roseboom, who I think is more of a natural off-ball or more of an outside linebacker type. I think the corners have played a little bit better. I think the safeties have played a little bit better, and obviously having Derek Brown back is huge. So yeah, I think they've kind of found a beat there. I think they're using Trevin Merrick the right way in multiple ways. And so I think that's helped them. I think they've found their groove. They're going to have their hiccups. There's going to be another game where they give up 200 rushing yards. I promise. But for right now, it does feel like they're much improved.
Yeah. And I just looked it up. Their team rankings actually don't have them as one of the better rush defenses. They're 18 in opponent rushing yards per game.
Jacksonville and Arizona were brutal.
And the Bills.
The Bills was tough, yeah.
They gave up 200. So it's really just a cause of these leaky plays and these leaky games. Outside of that, when it's kind of to your point previously, when they're playing, if they have a chance to win, that means that their run defense is playing well. So, and they have been playing well the past.
Well, I think they're well rested, to be fair. I think when you're running the ball effectively as an offense, you allow the defense to take breathers, and so they're not feeling like they're constantly gassed. So I think that also helps too.
Complimentary football. All right, let's talk about the Saints. And get out of here. Honestly, Mike, don't know a ton of things to say about the Panthers' NFC North rival. Today they traded away Rashid Shaheed, which might be one of 3 recognizable guys on this offense if you're just a casual fan, outside of Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara. If you're just a casual fantasy football guy, I don't know who else you would know. And if you're from the Carolinas, Spencer Rattler, but now he's the backup quarterback. So anyway,
you're not a big Silly Simpkins fan?
That's a good one. I'm a fan of him because you wrote a wonderful story about him heading into the NFL Combine, but I'm not yo, let's go Torricelli. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Torricelli law or principal or whatever it was. I can't remember what I wrote. But anyway, when the Saints kept marching into Mint Street, they're coming in with a 1-8 record that they have fully earned. This team is not good. Offensively, they are terrible. And they just got worse by trading away Shaheed, yes. Excuse me. Sorry, my brain just malfunctioned. Who had 73 yards off 3 catches, 73 yards and a touchdown off 3 catches against the Panthers in that atrocious week 1 of the Dave Canales era. Mm-hmm. So it's less that they have to worry about from a deep speed threat standpoint. Kamara's Kamara. You're going to have to worry about him. Taysom Hill has been utter kryptonite to this franchise since he's been in the league. So it would not shock me if he's used a bit more and they go more towards a 12 personnel package with the wide receiver out. And so offensively, I'm not very concerned about them. Defensively, they're kind of middle of the pack. and they could surprise you. Cam Jordan's still playing well. They've got a pretty decent secondary. Like, they're not hurting for talent. They're pretty much even with what I'd expect the Panthers to be coming into this season. Like, you can run on them. You'll be able to run on them. They're allowing 129.4 yards per game on the ground. But passing wise, they're doing a pretty good job in the secondary. Alontae Taylor was awesome against them in week 1 of last year, where I think they blitzed him like 3 times. Or maybe I'm misremembering, and that's the year before. Anyway, he's good. I mean, this is a game they should win. They need to win it. If you're a Panthers fan, this is probably the game you say, "Hey, I'm buying last minute tickets to." They're 5-4 in November.
Yes,
And they're playing a 1-8 team with a
and
chance
not
of
being over
6-4. You shouldn't look past them. I don't get the sense the Panthers are either. The second after their game, Damian Lewis basically told me that they want to play every opponent like it's the Super Bowl. I don't think that that's right or fair. But I also don't think they're going to overlook the Saints. I think they got up for the Jets game defensively. I think this has to be a very similar performance. I do not expect Bryce Young to have a huge game. Rico will be Rico. He's a wagon right now. But defensively, I think they're going to have to play pretty similar to how they played against the Jets and the Packers. I don't expect this to be a super high scoring game. I'm trying to remember how much the Saints score about 15 points a game. Was that what it was? Yeah, 15.3 points per game. I think if the Panthers clear 23, they're going to win this game easily. They just don't have it at quarterback. I think Kellen Moore is going to become a pretty good head coach. I just don't think he's there. I think he's where Dave Canales was last year. And so I think if the defense performs well, they should be able to run away with this one. And my score, since I said if they surpass 23, I'm going to say 24-16.
Oh, hey, closer than I think a lot of people would imagine. The line right now is 5.5. The Panthers,
right? But remember, you get 3 for being at home, so it's really 2.5.
Yeah, but
which I still don't think is enough. But I'm taking the over.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's significant nonetheless, though, because, okay, just to clear this up, and I mean, you can retweet whatever you want to retweet. It's still cool. There was a tweet going around, a report going around that the Panthers are the only team in NFL history to be 5-4 and not be favored in any of those games. According to FanDuel Sportsbook, up until kickoff, the Panthers were favored against the Jets. So I'm not exactly, maybe CBS had different lines that they were working with or whatever, but like they have been favored in a game before this season. Still, 5.5 is the most that they have been because they were only favored by 1.5 points against the Jets. So that's significant nonetheless. I'm not going to rehash everything that Mike did. He did a really good and concise job with it. I have the Panthers winning 28-10. I think they're due for kind of a stress-free win, kind of like what they had in week 3. And they'll go into week 10 6-4. Or wait, emerge from
They would emerge. Yeah. They
would. Match is difficult. Hey, Mike, appreciate you, man.
Listen, that's huge. If they're 6-4 heading to, I believe, in Atlanta, right? If they're going into Atlanta with a 2-0 record in the division and a 6-4 record overall, like, that's big. And I promise you the Panthers fans will travel for that game. I'm sure there's a lot of them in South Carolina. It's not a hard drive. So that could be really big. So 6-4 with the possibility of being 7-4. Again, you don't want to overthink it, but like, I had them winning 7 games this season. You had them winning 8. I mean, they're gonna clear my total, I would think. I think they could potentially clear yours, and if they do that, maybe they're a wild card team in the playoffs, and man, that would be really interesting.
Or maybe they went out and just like everything, and then just everything changes. We need to
Well,
reconsider.
then they would win the division. So
Okay, I'm joking. All right. Anything else, Mike?
no, not really. I hope you guys
They look-
tune in for the rest of our coverage throughout the week. All three of us will be there at the game on Sunday. We'll have some great stuff, some sidebars from Alex. Remember to sign up for the Axis Panthers newsletter. It is free.
Wait,
Free, always free. Go
it's-
straight to your email inbox. You don't have to be great at technology. If you follow me on X, it's the link in my profile. If you don't and you're a subscriber or you're not a subscriber to the Panthers, you can see postage for that everywhere. All you have to do is put in your email. It takes a few seconds and boom, there it goes. You're a newsletter subscriber. If you read the newsletter this week, you knew that not a lot was going to happen at the trade deadline. You also learned a little bit about Trevon Merrick and the way they use him and how important he was in free agency. So make sure you're signing up for that, because you get newsletters on Saturday from Alex, Monday from me, trivia, exclusive stories, and much more. So sign up. That's my big pitch. Alex, take us home.
Thanks, as always, for listening to our pontifications on all things Panthers with Mike K and myself and our wonderful producer, Zach Dennis. Please subscribe and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts by searching Processing Blue. And if you watch us on YouTube, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to get notified whenever new episodes drop. And finally, please be sure to stick to charlotteobserver.com for all of your Panthers needs. Mike, stay humble, stay creative, and keep processing.
That's a wrap.